The ship was named Herald of Supremacy, which was ironic considering its engines wheezed like a dying ox, and the interior smelled like burnt fungus and scorched coolant. High Talon Rezer strutted through the main corridor with his claws clicking against the floor, his chin held aloft as if gravity owed him deference. Behind him his honor guard trailed, tails swishing, all bark and chrome armor. It was supposed to be a routine extraction. Grab the human children, load them up, and deliver them to Dominion High Command for leverage. Rezer had expected resistance. Explosions. Screaming. Maybe a noble last stand. Instead, they'd walked into a quiet outpost. No alarms. No traps. Just 3 human children, sitting calmly in a reinforced daycare unit, playing with plastic blocks. The oldest, a boy of about 11, looked up and blinked slowly, as if they'd interrupted something very important, like a nap. "Took you long enough," he muttered. Rezer hadn't understood the words, but the tone, that casual disrespect, it stuck in his scales like a splinter. Now, the children sat in Containment Unit 9, surrounded by shimmering grav bars, none of them shackled. Rezer didn't see the need. He was already reviewing possible trades, technology, planetary rights, even military secrets. Humans had a soft spot for their young, especially Earthlings. It was their weakness. Beside him, Junior Officer Yulox tapped at his terminal, sweat glistening along his segmented brow. "Sir," he said hesitantly, "they aren't behaving as expected." Meaning? Rezer didn't slow his stride. "They're not crying, not pleading." In fact, he paused to replay surveillance footage. The younger girl appears to be teaching the others origami, and the eldest has requested apple juice. Twice. Rezer scoffed. Primitive coping mechanisms. Psychological delay tactics. Let them fold their paper and pretend we're not gods walking among vermin. He turned sharply and entered the observation chamber. The children were indeed gathered around a small table. The girl, red curls and sharp blue eyes, was folding something into a crane. The youngest, barely 6, sat upside down in his chair, humming what sounded like the Macarena. The eldest boy stood when Rezer entered. His gaze locked onto Rezer's with a dispassionate stare far too practiced for his age. "You've got about 6 hours before my mom finds us." Rezer tilted his head. "Your mother?" The boy didn't blink. "Yeah. She told us what to do if something like this ever happened. Stay calm. Stay together. Leave a trail. And don't let the enemy think they've won." The girl piped up without looking up from her paper. "Also, never eat the food they offer. It's probably got alien parasites." Yulox choked on his own breath. "How do they know that?" Rezer leaned closer to the glass. "You speak as if your maternal figure is a threat." "She's the worst," the youngest added with a grin. "One time, she made a man apologize to a tree because he kicked it." Yulox looked like he was about to faint. Rezer waved dismissively. Delusions of children. But Yulox couldn't shake the unease growing in his gut. He double-checked the names. The boy, Leo Halstead. The mother, listed in old files, flagged, and then scrubbed. Ren Halstead. His hands trembled slightly. He whispered, "Sir, I think we should alert command." On Earth, somewhere in the quiet green mountains of what had once been Colorado, Ren Halstead finished adjusting the wind chimes on her porch. They were shaped like tiny moons and planets, softly clinking in the breeze. Her garden was well kept. A lemon tree leaned slightly toward the sun. Bees hovered lazily over lavender. Her communicator buzzed inside the house. She let it ring once, twice. On the third, she answered, brushing dirt from her fingertips. "Ren Halstead." The voice on the other end was synthetic, polite. "Ma'am. Priority alert. Interstellar Article 9, juvenile hostile abduction. Your children have been taken." She didn't scream, didn't drop the comm, she simply turned her head slightly, as if listening for something. Birds. Wind. The hollow spot where her children's laughter should have been. "How many?" she asked. 3. "All 3, she said, confirming what she already knew. "Affirmative. Surveillance drones confirm abduction by Dominion Vessel Herald of Supremacy. Estimated course, Sector 12. Intent, leverage or experimentation. Threat level, classified. She stepped off the porch. The wind died. Activate protocol, Nest Claw. The voice paused. Nest Claw? Ma'am, that's been offline since the Geneva Accords. It's considered dormant warfare. She stared at the mountains. Reactivate it. A long pause. Affirmative. Protocol Nest Claw is now active. Do you require rearmament? I have everything I need, she said, walking toward a shed tucked into the trees. The door opened with a hiss. Inside, darkness, dust, and a single red-lit case labeled Retrieval Kit H. She opened it slowly. Inside, one matte black gauntlet, a pair of boots that left no thermal trace, a handheld grab spike, and a necklace of old, battered dog tags. She put them on in silence, then pressed a button on her wrist. A hidden door slid open at the back of the shed. Ren Halstead disappeared into the forest without a sound. Ulox was sweating through his uniform. He stood at his console, hands shaking as he scrolled through archived data on Ren Halstead. Every file was fragmented, redacted, removed. What little remained told him more than enough. Not military, not diplomat, not spy, hunter. Rezer, meanwhile, remained unconcerned. He sipped fermented plasma through a straw and barked orders at subordinates. Increase our speed. Set course for Dominion Prime. I want those children paraded like trophies by sunrise. Ulox dared to speak up. Sir, respectfully, there are records from older campaigns. Her name came up during the siege of Vega 4. 3 Dominion generals went missing. Their bodies were never recovered. She's one woman. She's a mother, Ulox whispered. Rezer laughed. All the better. Maybe she'll come. I'd like to meet this so-called predator. In the holding cell, Leo Halstead drew a small map in dust with his finger. What are you drawing? The girl asked. Her route. She'll go dark around the Tellari Rim. That'll give her a jump point near Sector 12. If she steals a Dominion transjump, she'll beat us to command. The youngest blinked. How do you know that? Leo shrugged. I've seen her do it before. They all fell quiet. Do you think she's mad? The girl asked. Leo stared at the grab barriers. No, she's focused. In the outer edges of the Tellari Rim, 3 Dominion ships vanished from tracking grids. No alerts, no distress calls, just silence. On the wreckage of one, scorched into the hull, return the children. On another, this is your only warning. At high command, diplomats scrambled. Files were pulled. Meetings called. The name Halstead, thought buried, surfaced again like a deep-sea mind breaking water. In a cold, dim war room, a single Dominion elder sat alone, watching news feeds of the captured children. He exhaled slowly and whispered in an ancient dialect. You took her cubs. Back on the Herald, the ship's AI began glitching. Screens flickered. Internal sensors reset. Ambient temperature shifted by 2 degrees, just enough to mean something to those who knew war. Rezer stormed into the control room. Report. A technician turned pale. We're being followed. No ships on radar. It's not a ship, sir. It's something else. Interference. Shadows. We think it's cloaked. Rezer growled. Get me a visual. But the feed only showed static. Then, for a brief moment, a single frame. A human woman standing in the void, eyes locked on the camera. No suit. No mask. Just a faint smile. Then, blackness. Rezer stepped back. In the cell, the lights flickered. Leo smiled. She's here. The youngest clapped. Told you. Rezer stood frozen as a quiet alarm, one no one remembered installing, began to pulse in the walls. Ulox didn't speak. He couldn't. His eyes were fixed on a data panel that had just updated. The panel read, Nest Claw Protocol, active. Status, retrieval in progress. Target, her young. And then, beneath that blinking red, lock doors and pray. In the sleek obsidian walls of Dominion High Command Central Tower, the tension could have been cut with a vibroblade. Ambassador Blaz floated slightly above the ground, tendrils of his jellyfish-like form pulsing in agitation. He'd been dragged from a negotiation session over or mining rights on the outer moons to this emergency summit, one apparently centered around a human mother. A mother of all things. Not a warlord. Not a super soldier. A civilian. Repeat that slowly, Vlad said, his voice flowing through the translator node, silky and patronizing. The hologram of the Dominion Defense Minister flickered with static. Ren Halstead has activated Nest Claw. That protocol hasn't existed for over a decade. It was erased, archived, and buried under sanctions. Apparently, she didn't get the memo. Vlad's form dimmed a fraction. In his culture, that was the equivalent of a shiver. What is her status? Unknown. She hasn't appeared on any formal grid. 3 of our border patrol ships were silenced. No debris. Just missing. We intercepted this. The feed jumped to a grainy visual, no audio. A series of Dominion cruisers drifting aimlessly in space, their internal lights flickering. Then, carved deep into one hull in gouged alien script, return the children. Another feed. A shot of Ren Halstead, standing without a helmet in the vacuum of space, staring at the camera. No breath. No suit. Just a look. Calm. Composed. Calculated. Vlad absorbed it in silence. Well then, he said softly, you brought her into Dominion space. Back aboard the Herald of Supremacy, Ulox paced with frantic energy in the engineering bay, sifting through old Earth reports. Each piece he found made his fronds tremble more. Ren Halstead had been involved in everything, off the record. She'd trained Apex squads in asymmetric warfare. She'd written a strategy thesis on cultural misdirection as battlefield advantage. She was once offered a seat on Earth's Security Council. Declined. Said she preferred planting tomatoes. She had also participated in 0 official combat operations, which made her all the more terrifying. In the brig, Leo and his siblings were still calm. Too calm. Leo now held a small Dominion datapad, which he'd apparently hacked using only the interface gloves and a popsicle stick. He read quietly while the girl folded another paper crane. I don't get it, said the youngest, legs swinging off the table. Why do they think this will work? Didn't they study humans? They studied our wars, Leo replied. Not our mothers. He closed the datapad and looked at the door. They're about to learn the difference. Aboard the Dominion Council ship Verity's Claw, a new player entered the scene. Field strategist Karena Di, a female warrior from the Valari species, renowned for her cold logic and ruthless efficiency, watched the reports with narrowed, diamond-shaped pupils. I've faced Earth operatives before, she said to the assembled admirals. But never her. She's just one individual, grunted a low-crothy general, slamming a metallic fist against the table. We can dispatch a cruiser fleet. Bring her in. Show strength. Karena stared him down. And what happens when she doesn't fight you? What happens when she outmaneuvers you? When your fleet arrives at your homeworld, already turned to dust? The silence was immediate and heavy. She stood. You kidnapped her offspring. That wasn't a strategic misstep. That was a declaration of war you didn't understand you were making. An old Crithian sage muttered, we awakened the Apex Mother. Ren drifted silently through the gravitational slipstream of Sector 12, her stolen Dominion courier pod barely emitting a whisper of a heat signature. She sat in its center, arms folded, breathing in slow rhythms that matched the heartbeat monitor on her wrist. Her children were alive. She could feel it. She tapped the interface. A display lit up. Herald of Supremacy. Location, near Arky's Belt. Security, high. Fleet presence, sparse. Ren smiled faintly. She didn't need a fleet. She needed 10 minutes. And a distraction. Her fingers danced across controls, releasing 6 decoy drones into the system. Each emitted soft Earth radio signals, random 80s pop songs. One played Eye of the Tiger. Another, Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. All harmless. All confusing. Dominion Command noticed them immediately. Earth probes, one technician blurted. No. Lures, Karena muttered, already moving toward her vessel. Ulox burst into the command chamber, panting. We need to let them go. Now. Rezer turned slowly. Are you defecting? No, I'm surviving, Yulok snapped. This woman, you don't understand. She's not here to bargain. She's here to end this. She's one human. We have 1,000 troops. Exactly. Yulok's face went pale. That's more bodies than she needs. Suddenly, every internal screen blinked with the same message. Hello, Rezer. A moment of stillness. Then Ren's voice, soft and conversational, played over the PA system. You took my children. I don't do negotiations. I do retrieval. You've got 90 seconds to stand down. Rezer barked. Trace that signal. No trace. No source. It was coming from inside their own encrypted channels. She was already in their systems. The lights dimmed. Doors sealed. Every engine fell quiet. Yulok whispered, she's here. Back at Dominion High Command, Karena Di boarded her interceptor cruiser. As she strapped in, she tapped into the military net, listening to panic screams from Herald of Supremacy. She recognized the tactics. No explosions, no blood. Just precision. Systems disabled. Lights flickering. The Psychological Warfare Manual of Ren Halstead, page 62. Let the enemy defeat themselves in the dark. Karena opened a channel to Vlaz. It's too late to stop her. We have to contain the collapse. Vlaz hissed. Do what you must. Rezer stormed toward the brig, weapon drawn. Arm every unit. Prepare to evacuate the children for transport. But the door to the cell was already open. The grab bars were still humming, undisturbed. But no children sat inside. Instead, on the floor, was a folded origami crane made from Dominion command paper. On one wing was written, You should have brought snacks. A voice behind him said, They're with me. Rezer turned and saw her. No armor. No rifle. Just Ren Halstead, standing in the corridor, hands loose at her sides, expression unreadable. Calm. Controlled. Terrifying. You don't belong here, he growled. Neither do my kids, she replied softly. That's the problem. He fired. She moved. He missed. She didn't. Her hand snapped upward, flicked something. A microdart hissed through the air. Rezer froze mid-motion, blinked, collapsed. Ren stepped over him, opened a nearby panel, and entered a code. The lights flickered, then changed hue to soft white. The Dominion ships lockdown reversed. Leo peeked from a hidden service, ducked with his siblings. Told you she'd do it in under 10. The youngest held up a juice pouch. Found the snacks, too. Ren smiled and ruffled his hair. Of course you did. Across the stars, command fleet scrambled. Political leaders convened. But the galaxy had already watched the live footage leak, courtesy of Ren's override of Dominion systems. Billions saw a mother walk into the most feared warship in the quadrant and walk out with her children. No one stopped her. No one could. On a mining moon orbiting Tellurian 5, a bar went silent as the feed played. A hardened bounty hunter muttered, didn't know she was still alive. His companion replied, she wasn't. She was waiting. Back aboard her ship, Ren tucked the kids in. They were exhausted. Her daughter mumbled something about aliens being bad at baking. Ren kissed her forehead and rose. Outside on the hull, etched into the steel with her own knife, were the words, If you want war, take a soldier. If you want extinction, take a child. She stared out into the stars and spoke softly into the void. Next time, knock. The ship entered stealth mode. Her course, home. But the galaxy was no longer what it had been. Ren Halstead was active. And now they knew. Aboard the Dominion's war-scarred flagship Osix Vow, Admiral Trass stared blankly at the transmission looping on the main view screen. No explosions. No declarations of battle. Just a single clip broadcasted, rebroadcasted, and now seared into the minds of every fleet officer, diplomat, and schoolchild in the quadrant. Ren Halstead, hands at her sides, walking alone through the shattered corridors of the Herald of Supremacy. Her children flanking her. No visible weapons. No backup. Just silence and movement, like a shadow that couldn't be stopped, only survived. Admiral Trass didn't blink, didn't speak, until the screen cut to black. Then he muttered, "We took the wrong cub." In the corner of the command deck, his second-in-command, Lorik, whispered, "Sir, there's no indication she's leading a coordinated assault." Trass's head turned slowly. "She is the assault." Lorik looked down. Even among the Dominion, whose arrogance was a matter of genetic pride, there were some truths that couldn't be argued with. And Ren Halstead's resurgence was no longer a rumor. It was a reckoning. "Begin evacuation protocols for Sector 12 outposts," Trass ordered. "And scramble the observation choir." "The observation choir?" Lorik hesitated. "Isn't that reserved for galaxy-scale anomalies?" Trass stared into the blackness beyond the bridge. "She qualifies." In the cold vacuum between stars, Ren sat cross-legged in her commandeered scout vessel, flanked by her 3 sleeping children. The hum of the stealth drive soothed like a heartbeat, and the low-light field cast gentle shadows across their faces. She wasn't resting. She was planning. The children were safe. But safety was temporary. Dominion High Command would adapt. They always did. And they wouldn't take the humiliation lightly. They never had. She rotated the holomap, zooming in on the Archie's relay chain, a series of communication satellites spanning a dozen systems. If she took them offline, the Dominion would be deaf in the inner rings for days, long enough for every civilized race to watch them squirm. But it wasn't just about making them hurt. It was about ensuring no one tried this again. Not with her children. Not with anyone's. Her fingers hovered over a command line. She hesitated, thought of Leo's quiet bravery, Ella's sharp tongue, Max's unshakable joy. Her jaw tightened. She tapped the key. The virus launched. On Dominion-controlled stations, lights flickered. Holoscreens stuttered. Comms fell into static-laced silence. Outposts scrambled to reboot core systems. Nothing worked. The Archie's relay chain was offline. And in its place, every Dominion screen lit up with a single message. "This isn't about vengeance. This is a lesson. Don't touch our young. WH. No threats. No demands. Just that cold, quiet reminder." Karenadii, still aboard her cruiser, watched the text hover in front of her. Her hands curled into fists. She'd been ordered to hunt Ren down, to stop the narrative. But deep down, she knew the truth. The narrative couldn't be stopped. It was already gospel. Far from Dominion space, the Trade Congress of Myralia convened an emergency session. Their spindly, cephalopod-like speaker clicked in alarm. "We've received over 72 alliance requests, all citing Earth's maternal retribution protocol as preferred defense strategy." An Earth ambassador, seated calmly in the room center, crossed his legs and smiled. "We told you. You poked a bear. And she walked into your living room wearing your slippers." The council murmured in confusion. The ambassador sighed. "It means you messed up." Back in deep space, Ren piloted through the remains of a Dominion forward base. No weapons fire. No screams. Just eerily quiet destruction. Blackened hulls floated like drifting bones, systems drained, crews sedated and restrained, not killed. That was her message. She didn't need to massacre. She needed them to understand the scale of what they'd done. Max stirred beside her, blinking sleepy eyes. "Are we done?" She kissed the top of his head. "Almost, baby." Leo sat up, hair ruffled. "You're going to hit the High Council, aren't you?" Ren gave a small, knowing smirk. Ella mumbled, half asleep. "Burn her all, Mom." Ren whispered, "Not burn. Remind." Dominion High Council's internal command center was shielded, buried under layers of electromagnetic dampeners and psychic defense fields. It had never been breached. It was about to be embarrassed. Ren's entry was surgical. A quiet override of an atmospheric control system. A false carbon dioxide warning that forced personnel to vacate. No one died. No one fought. They simply fled. And when they returned 30 minutes later, there she stood, sipping tea in the center of their war room, her children seated politely beside her. A single phrase played on every wall in looping text. "Would you like to talk now?" The High Chancellor, a triple-headed reptilian known for his fire-breathing speeches and thick carapace ego, stormed in red-faced and barking. "This is an act of war." Ren stood, gently setting down her cup. "No," she replied calmly. "Taking children was. This is what happens after." His upper right mouth opened to snarl, but froze. Her eyes were locked on him. Not enraged. Not unhinged. Cold. Precise. Patient. He had seen that look once before, on the battlefield of Ortax III, when an Earth tactician had sacrificed a city to win a solar war. "You," he rasped, throat-catching. "You're not even angry." She tilted her head. "Oh, I am. But I never fight from anger. I fight from focus." He stepped back. "Children are not leverage," she continued. "They're not tokens. They're not pawns. They're not yours." She moved closer. "They're mine. And that makes them more protected than your entire empire." He opened his mouth to retort. She raised a finger. "I'm leaving. You'll let me. Because if I have to come back, I won't bring weapons. I'll bring silence. And I will leave nothing untouched." He said nothing. She gestured to her children. They rose and followed without a word. As they exited, she turned back one final time. "One more thing." A beat of silence. She smiled politely. "Tell the galaxy, Earth mothers don't bluff." News of her infiltration shattered across star systems faster than hyperdrive signals. The Dominion's vaunted capital, humbled by one woman and her children. Entire worlds that once feared Dominion rule now laughed in public cafes, sharing Ren's message like scripture. On a moon called Jerox, a graffiti artist sprayed her silhouette across a government building with a quote, "If you take a cub, expect the lioness." On a space station orbiting Warren 6, civilians began naming defense programs Nest Claw protocols. And in the deep black, aboard a cloaked Earth vessel, a quiet celebration occurred. Ren and her children sat around a table, eating real Earth food. Apple slices, mac and cheese, toast with cinnamon sugar. Max grinned, face smeared with sauce. "Mom." "Yes, sweetheart." "Will they try again?" Ren sipped her tea. "I hope not." Leo looked up. "But if they do?" Ren reached forward, gently wiping his cheek with a napkin. "If they do," she said with the calm certainty of a storm just beyond the horizon, "we'll remind them why we never stopped being apex predators. We just got better at smiling." And out there, in the void, the Dominion wasn't sleeping. They were rebuilding, retrenching, regrouping, but always watching. Because they knew now, you don't take human children. Not without consequence. Not without awakening the quiet, calculated rage of a mother who doesn't need permission. Just time. And the patience to make you regret everything. The Dominion's elite war council gathered in silence beneath the obsidian spires of Velker Prime, their chambers shrouded in gloom despite the twin suns blazing beyond the planetary shield. For the first time in recorded galactic history, no one spoke. No one argued. Not even High Chancellor Draz, whose triple-headed rhetoric had once swayed empires. He merely stared at the holographic feed looping before them. There she was again, Ran Halstead. No armor, no guards, no declarations. Just a quiet walk through their most secure council chamber, a cup of tea in hand, children at her side, and a message they could no longer ignore. Every defense protocol had been breached without damage. Every fleet had been rendered motionless without loss. And every threat they thought they'd understood about humanity had been shattered by a single mother who'd never raised her voice. Now she was gone, vanished like fog at sunrise. But her presence remained, etched into Dominion systems, military strategy, even their culture. Some whispered she had left viruses in their fleets, listening programs in their walls. Others believed she had simply taught them fear in its purest, most surgical form. No longer a myth. No longer a footnote. She was legend. And legends didn't disappear. They waited. Across the stars, power was shifting. Trade syndicates refused to transport for the Dominion. Border worlds burned the Dominion's flag in the streets. Children, alien children, dressed as Ren during their harvest festivals, wearing mock gravity boots and holding handmade tea mugs. A cultural revolution had begun, and its spark had been the quiet fury of a mother. One who never raised a weapon unless absolutely necessary, but always raised hell. In a small cabin nestled deep within Earth's Appalachian Mountains, Ren sat barefoot on the porch, a mug of tea in one hand and a data crystal in the other. The sun filtered through autumn trees, gold and copper dancing in the wind. Her children played in the meadow nearby, chasing holographic butterflies, laughing like nothing had ever happened. But she watched them constantly, a practiced glance every few seconds. Not paranoid, prepared. Because she knew the Dominion wasn't finished. They wouldn't forget, and they wouldn't forgive. Earth's diplomats had tried to spin her actions as a personal mission that did not reflect the policies of the Terran coalition. But no one believed that. Not anymore. Too many watched her breach their walls. Too many saw what she was. Not a soldier, not a spy, a huntress, built not to destroy cities, but to end pursuits, to retrieve what was taken, and to never fail. Earth, for all its peace agreements and pretenses of unity, had always known what she was capable of. That's why they never interfered. That's why her clearance remained silently active all these years. Because Ren Halstead was not a last resort. She was the warning before the last resort. Her comm pinged softly. She answered. Ren, came the voice of Ambassador Kell, her old handler. I assume you've seen the latest movements. I've seen them. 5 Dominion warships have entered neutral space. They're scouting. Slowly. Quietly. Good, she said. There was a long pause. You're not going to engage? No. They could be coming for your kids again. They're not. And if they are? Ren stood, eyes narrowing at the distant sky. Then I won't come back with tea. The Dominion's new elite, desperate to restore credibility, turned to the unthinkable. Project Dreadscale, an artificial hybrid, constructed from predator DNA gathered from across hundreds of worlds, trained in simulations, programmed with kill protocols. No empathy, no fear, no hesitation. Its first mission, Earth. Its target, Ren Halstead. The logic was simple. They had tried diplomacy. They had tried leverage. This time, they would use a weapon, not a war. What they didn't understand, still, was that Ren had never operated on their logic. She wasn't driven by power. She was driven by something older, deeper, and far more dangerous. Instinct. When the ship arrived in Earth's orbit, cloaked and silent, no alarms triggered. Dominion tech was sophisticated, invisible to most radars. But not to Ren. She stood in the woods with a worn pair of field binoculars in one hand and a handmade slingshot in the other. A bird perched on her shoulder. Her hair was braided, half loose, eyes calm. The forest stilled. Her children had already been moved to the underground vault she built years ago, before they were even born. Just in case. The creature landed half a kilometer from her position. Massive. 4 arms. Carbon-scale armor. Breath like a furnace. It scanned the trees, clicking in frustration. Ren stepped into view. Looking for me? She called. The creature turned, eyes glowing red. She smiled gently. I'm not what you expect. It charged. She moved. Fast. Not away, but toward. She ducked beneath its first strike, rolled over a root, and drove a custom-forged blade into its side. It screamed. Not in pain, but in recognition. Its systems flagged her as a non-standard opponent. She had no energy signature, no targetable implant, just skill. It tried again, claws swiping like meteor storms. She moved like smoke, every motion clean, every angle predicted. She didn't overpower the creature. She outthought it. 37 seconds into the battle, it stumbled. 40 seconds in, she disabled its optic system. By minute 1, she whispered into its remaining ear, "You were built in a lab. I was built by necessity." Then she brought the forest down on it. She triggered a series of seismic charges hidden under the soil, pre-placed years ago, just in case. The trees fell. Rocks collapsed. The beast was swallowed whole. And Ren stood above it, brushing dirt from her jeans. She pulled out a handheld transmitter and recorded message. "To the Dominion," she said, voice calm. "You built a monster. I raised children. She paused, then added, "Your mistake was assuming I was the softer of the two." The galaxy reeled. Dominion News networks tried to spin the story, calling Ren a terrorist, a rogue agent, a myth. But footage leaked again, untraceable as always. The creature's death, her unflinching resolve. The final message, etched into the wreckage of the creature's body in clean script. I am not your myth. I am your memory. And still, she vanished. On Vorta Prime, a library archivist wrote her into a new entry under intergalactic threat profiles. He paused before submitting the file, then moved her from red alert to black tier, a classification previously reserved only for extinction-class anomalies. And then, reluctantly, he added a line to the bottom of the file. Do not engage. Do not provoke. Do not touch your cubs. In her cabin, Ren read to her kids from an old Earth book, Where the Wild Things Are. Max giggled at the monster. Ella said it looked like Rezer. Leo asked if the wild things ever came back. They never do, Ren answered softly. Not after learning what's waiting. And as night fell and the cabin filled with laughter and firelight, Ren finally relaxed. Just a little. Because she knew something most of the galaxy didn't. She wasn't hunting anymore. She didn't have to. They'd never forget what she was. Not a soldier. Not even a mother. A huntress. The kind that never needed to scream. Because once you heard her silence, it was already too late.